Today I give you the final update on my homemade truck camper project. Why? Does anyone still even care? Shut up, it's my channel, I'll do what I want. Right. You do what you want. I just thought, you know, it's a car channel probably. No one cares about the box you built in the back of your pickup, but what do I know? I'm only here because of editing. I have a lot to cover in this update. No, he doesn't. Go away. Ow. Anyway, I have a lot to cover in this update, so I'm going to start with all the changes I've made since my last truck camper update about a year ago. Some of these changes are incredibly minimal, but I'm going to tell you about them anyway to add fluff to this incredibly short list. I added knobs to the magnets that hold the window shade in place for easier gripability. I rounded the corners and painted the little blocks that hold up the bed extension rack thing. I did absolutely nothing to the rack itself, but at least the holders now look like less of an afterthought. Lastly, I told you this was a short list, I modified the toilet. I never mentioned it before now, but my toilet is a Camco brand premium toilet. And I'm only telling you that now so you know not to buy it because it has two rather large design flaws. The first design flaw is the sewage tank vent. It doesn't exist. So what happens is the pressure inside the sewage tank builds up, which causes two issues. Problem the first is the air pressure in the tank changes the shape of the tank, which causes the seal between the toilet bowl and the flush valve to not seal anymore. Problem the second is that all of that pent-up sewage tank pressure gets released through the flush valve when you open it. These two problems combined mean that if you have pressure built up into the tank, which happens often, you'll go to have a wee, most of your urine will leak out onto the floor, but any urine that remained in the toilet bowl will then be air blasted in your face by sewage tank pressure when you go to open the flush valve. I actually had this happen to me one time. It was a pleasant experience. No, wait, I don't mean pleasant, do I? I mean, it was, if you're wondering how I resolved my tank venting issue, well, I didn't. I didn't do anything. I just wanted to whine about having micturition residues sprayed in my face and leak all over my floor. All I have to do is open the flush valve before each use of the toilet to relieve the pressure in the tank. I just have to remember to do that. The second commode design flaw that I did fix is the flushing pump. I would describe the design flaw in more detail, but I've already talked about a toilet more than a used car dealer talks about financing. So I'm just going to simplify it and say that the flushing pump breaks easily and is broken. So instead of fixing the broken pump on the toilet, I replaced the toilet's broken flush pump with this. It's a kitchen sprayer connected to the camper's existing water pump. That's it. I mean, this took me a full day to come up with, but that's really all it is. It works too. That's spraying outside, if you're wondering. Now I can more adequately wash out the toilet bowl, do it with a higher water pressure than before, and I won't have two separate water tanks to worry about. And as a bonus, in a pinch, this sprayer can double as a bidet. And that concludes the list of things I've changed since the last year. I know, I haven't done a lot. What I really wanted to talk about today was what I would do differently if I were to build another truck camper. In other words, what I think I screwed up on this one. You ready for this? I'm about to go through a list. I chose to make the frame for this thing out of steel because steel is cheap, steel is strong, and I had just bought a MIG welder that I was dying to use. But steel has a bit of a problem. Steel dissolves in water. I mean, yeah, slowly, but it does happen. And despite my best efforts at waterproofing, water still gets access to the frame of this thing. I know that because every time I move this camper around after it's been sitting outside for a while, water flows from somewhere new around the camper, and that water is rusty. I mean, yeah, the steel still has its benefits. It's strong, so I can use a pretty small amount of it, which adds lightness, and it's easy to weld and work with in general. Now, I could have used aluminum, but I'd have to use a lot more of it for the same strength. It would cost a lot more, and I would have had to either buy a TIG welder or use millions of mechanical fasteners, which is why I went with steel in the first place. So what would I make the frame out of if I were to do this all over again? Well, I've thought about it a while, and I think I would go with foam core composites. I would make the entire shell of the truck camper out of 2-inch thick foam board insulation, and then put a thick layer of fiberglass on both the inside and outside layers. Now, this would obviously require quite a bit of figuring out work and probably money, but if everything went to plan, I'd end up with a truck camper shell that is super lightweight, super strong, and provides a monolithic thermal, water, and air barrier. Now, I've had this idea for a while, which is why I made these sidewalls out of foam board with a layer of fiberglass over top. I was just kind of playing around with the idea. Now, I've never attempted anything near the scale of the massive structural shell I'm talking about with fiberglass and foam, So maybe it won't work out anything like I'm imagining, but I don't know. I'm not going to build a second truck camper. Maybe one of you out there can try it and report back to me. Tell me how it goes. Maybe you've already done it. I don't know. I use pressure-treated plywood for the exterior sheeting on the underside bits of the camper. This was a stupid idea for many reasons. For one, wood absorbs water. That's how wood do. Water that is then going to be held against the steel frame, causing even more rust issues. Now, I did try to mitigate this a bit by coating all the exposed wood surfaces and either undercoating a truck bed liner, I can't remember, but that only goes so far. Also, wood's heavy. It weighs a lot. Weight that I added to by adding that truck bed coating over top of it. I should have used pretty much anything else for the exterior sheeting on the underside bits. I don't know, aluminum, fiberglass sheet, I'm not sure, but wood is not the right answer unless we're talking about resin impregnated balsa, but we're not. If I were to do it over again, I would do the whole foam core composite structure that I mentioned earlier and completely negate the need for exterior sheeting altogether. This AC unit is a total afterthought and looks the part. There's nothing wrong with the unit itself, it's fine. It's my execution that's flawed. Had I had AC in the original plans, not that there were any plans to speak of, the unit would have been set into the wall like is done on many small campers. So all you'd see on the outside is a vent instead of this massive, hideous tumor hanging off the back of the wall. Aesthetics aside, there's also the issue of powering this thing. I have a 1000 watt inverter on board, which is plenty to power this thing, which draws 600 watts, but I have a 100 amp hour AGM battery. And because it's a lead acid battery, you can only use 50% of that safely. So 100 amp hours times 12 volts is 1200 watt hours, divided by 2 for the capacity is 600 watt hours, which means that I can run this AC unit off the battery for about an hour, and then my battery's dead and I can't do anything else with it. In short, running this AC unit is basically not an option for me. I need shore power, but I use this camper in Walmart parking lots, rest stops, and other places that generally aren't known for having free public shore power. So I've never used this AC unit, not once. So just like a Continental kit, it's a big ugly weight penalty. So how would I improve this if I were to build another truck camper? Well, honestly, I don't know. I think my only two options are to increase the electrical system capacity with bigger solar panels and a bigger battery, or have no AC. The heater, just like the air conditioner, was a total afterthought. I got this little buddy vent-free propane heater, as it's the absolute smallest blue flame vent-free propane heater I could find, and it works just fine. Really no issue there. But it does have a bit of an issue, and that's that it doesn't have a thermostat. So I spent a cold night in this camper one time, and it was a constant cycle of turn on the heater, go to sleep, wake up melting, turn off the heater, go back to sleep, wake up freezing, turn on the heater, go to sleep, wake up melting, etc., etc. You get the idea. It was a miserable night. Now, of course, they make ventless propane heaters with actual thermostats on them, but the absolute smallest one of those I could find was 20,000 BTUs, which is way far and beyond what I need for a truck camper of this size. Plus, they're physically bigger, so I don't know where I'd mount it or the propane tank that runs it. And of course, there's the normal vented RV furnaces that you can get, but again, no idea where I'd mount it or the propane tank that runs it. I don't have a lot of working room in here. So how would I do the heat if I had to do this thing over again? Well, I thought about rigging up an Arduino and a servo motor to make a thermostat on the little buddy heater that I have on there now, but I don't really want to go to that trouble. And I also thought about having a mini split system installed on the camper, but you'd have to figure out where to put the outside unit, and you'd have to have a bigger electrical system, but you would have heat and AC in the same unit, so that would be pretty ideal. But as for my situation, none of the propane heaters on the market really seem ideal, so I just don't know. Hope you didn't come here for advice. I use this wood effect vinyl wrap stuff on a lot of the exposed wood surfaces on the inside of the camper. Now, I don't think I'd do that again. It looks cheapish, but that's okay, I was expecting that. The real problem is that it sort of shrank and changed shape over time, which doesn't look great. That's about all I had to say. Moving on to the next. I used these fiberglass reinforced plastic panels for the ceiling. And they work fine as ceiling panels and everything. The problem is that they have the rigidity of a stick of gum that's been scaled up to a 4x8 sheet. So they were a nightmare to hold over my head to install, even after I cut them into these smaller sections for installation. So that's a job I wish to not repeat. I would do something different the next time. Not to mention they're a little bit saggy now. The shower. There isn't one. My original floor plan included space for a dedicated shower, which is why this door is offset slightly. But when I got the frame completed, I realized there wasn't as much space in there as I had been imagining. It would have been like showering in a vertical coffin with a step stool at the bottom of it. Plus, I had no place for a drain, no place for a toilet, and building a shower over in this area would have meant I would have had no storage at all. None. That's why I omitted the shower entirely and just built some cabinets over here. What I should have done is something I thought of later, which is a portable shower of some sort. I could get a cooler to stand in, some shower curtains to hang from the ceiling, another kitchen sprayer like I have for the toilet that's kind of up higher, and I just have a little portable shower that I set up. All the water collects down in the cooler that I'm standing in, and I can dump out the me washings when I'm done showering and store all the shower curtains into the cooler and stow it somewhere out of the way. Now obviously this would be a pathetic and cold shower, but it's better than what I have now, which is a sink and a sponge. I'm an idiot and I made the roof perfectly flat instead of adding any pitch to it because I didn't think about rainwater. So now I have to park on slopes so the rain will roll off the back of it. Idiot. My camper is solar powered. In fact, I have no alternate ways of charging the battery other than the sun. I figured I have pretty low load requirements on the battery. The sun should provide me all the power I need, which is true, but what I didn't think about was storage, because now I can stick this camper where the sun don't shine, in my shop, where I have no easy way to charge or maintain the battery. What I should have done is just used an inverter charger instead of a plain old inverter, but as we've already established, I'm a stupid person. I didn't realize when I was building this truck camper how massively important the aerodynamics would be. In fact, the only thought I gave to it at all was putting this slope on the front on the cab over section here, but oh my God, was that a mistake. This thing is a massive air brake. When I'm pulling a light car, the Trabant, I get 6 to 7 miles per gallon. I can't maintain speed up hills. I can't really exceed 65 miles an hour, and my engine sounds like it wants to do nothing more than take a nap. In other words, it's exactly like driving the Wego, but with worse gas mileage. This is hands down the single biggest thing I did wrong with this truck camper. It just makes me not want to take it or drive it anywhere. It's especially bad on long trips where I just alternate back and forth between convincing myself it's going to be all right and stopping for gas. In fact, the drivability of this thing is so bad that I opted to just leave it home for my next long trip. It's just not worth the hassle. I'll get a hotel if I need to. And to be honest, I don't know how I would fix this problem. I could round off all the corners and make the nose up there a nice, smooth, rounded off aerodynamic shape, but I don't think that would be enough. I've still got a whole 3 feet of camper above the cab to deal with and 1 foot to either side of it. The more I think about this problem, the more I realize why pop-up truck campers exist. The most aerodynamic form is non-existence. And that's the end of the list. In summary, if I were to build another truck camper, I would make it out of foam core composites, have a shower, have a bigger electrical system, use mini splits for heating and cooling, maybe, and have better aerodynamics than a wavy brick. In other words, I would make it completely differently and probably still end up with something that I wanted to change every aspect of when I was done. If you haven't figured it out by now, the main fun of building this truck camper wasn't the end result. It's been completed for a year now and I've used it twice? The main fun of building this truck camper was building this truck camper. I absolutely loved working on this project. It might sound cheesy, but this project gave me something to live for. No, that doesn't sound cheesy. That sounds incredibly depressing. I like the project. Just leave it at that. I want to do another project like this again at some point, but this time film the work for an aging project series. However, as I've already stated, I'm not building another truck camper. It's just too limiting, and my poor pickup, it needs a rest. So what I want to do, hopefully within the next year, is buy a school bus.